Now live, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I actually do have a gavel, so I will call this meeting to order. And I should have that out during council meetings too. And let the record reflect that council members, committee member Zermano and myself are present, and committee member Marquez was unable to attend this evening. So we will now go on to public comments. Is there, I see there's one, is there any member of the public? I only see one attendee, but who would like to make a public comment at this point? Don't see that the attendee has a hand raised, so we will move on to our regular agenda. Item number 1 is approval of the minutes from the
was your favorite way
Council
to-
Sustainability Committee meeting of July 12th.
I have memorized them and I move on their approval.
Can I second this motion if I haven't memorized the minutes myself? I think I can, so I will go ahead and second the motion. I think that we can reflect that both the maker and seconder of the motion support the motion, and it passes with 2 votes and 1 member absent. Okay, thank you for that. Now we'll move on to the roadmap to meet our 2030 greenhouse gas emission target. And we will turn this over to, I guess, our.
I think Eric Pearson.
Okay,
Eric Pearson can introduce the item. Eric?
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Pearson.
So sure, Nicole Grecky is our sustainability specialist, and she's going to be a key member of our team that's working on the climate action plan update. So Nicole is going to present this item.
Okay, great, thanks.
Hello. So the city recently hired a consultant to prepare a climate action plan update, which will include identifying strategies, policies, and measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and achieve our 2030 GHG target. The CAP update is being done in conjunction with other general plan updates, including the housing element, with the consultant contract approved by council in July. This presentation will give an overview of the scope of the project and seek comments regarding the overall approach for the CAP update and associated outreach. So the city has been working to address climate change for more than a decade. In 2005, Stop Waste encouraged all Alameda County cities to complete a GHG inventory. And then in 2007, in Hayward, the Council Sustainability Committee was formed, where creating a climate action plan was one of the initial top priorities. So in 2009, the city's first climate action plan was adopted. The CAP was then amended and incorporated into the general plan in 2014, which provided a roadmap for the city's 2020 GHG reduction goals. Hayward's 2020 target was achieved 2 years early in 2018. In addition to the climate action plans, Council adopted the strategic roadmap for fiscal year 21 through 23, which included combat climate change as a priority. One of the key projects identified was to create a 2030 GHG road goal and roadmap. In June 2020, Council adopted new reduction targets of 30% by 2025, 55% by 2030, and carbon neutrality by 2045. The next climate action plan will look at how the city will achieve the 55% by 2030 goal while putting the city on a pathway to reach carbon neutrality by 2045. So the strategy for the CAP update will include the development of a comprehensive, defensible, and innovative plan. This CAP update is being combined with a housing element update, safety element update, and creation of the environmental justice element, because issues of housing, environmental justice, safety and hazard planning, and climate change are all linked. The scope of the work for the climate action plan update includes conducting a GHG forecasting analysis, 4 city staff workshops, 4 community workshops, the climate change vulnerability assessment and adaptation strategies, identifying GHG reduction strategies, policies, and programs, as well as analyzing and projecting GHG emission reductions from potential strategies, policies, and programs, estimating costs associated with potential programs, preparing funding and financing strategy for potential programs, preparing the CAP update document, providing CAP update implementation tracking instruments, conducting an environmental review, and CEQA GHG streamlining, checklist, and GHG thresholds. A priority of this project is to address racial equity and include a robust community outreach and engagement plan that will extend throughout the project timeframe. Staff will work with the consultant team to conduct community engagement and outreach that prioritizes hard to reach populations and will collaborate with and empower the community throughout the project. Some of our consultant strategies to address racial equity issues are to establish guardrails through which all programs and policies would be vetted and a commitment to creating a flexible and far-reaching outreach program by creating small grants for local community groups that can conduct outreach using toolkits to organize and run. As a part of the housing element in CAP update, the city will also need to incorporate an environmental justice element into the general plan. The environmental justice element requirement is aimed to address an equitable distribution of pollution and its associated health risks, specifically in low-income communities and communities of color. The element will address pollution exposure, provision of public facilities, food access, residential safety, and opportunities for physical activity. While the environmental justice element will be separate from the climate action plan update, the two items will be complementary. In addition to the climate action plan and the environmental justice element, the city is also participating in the California Equitable Home Electrification Program, which will last 9 months through May 2022. This program is being hosted by RMI and Emerald Cities Collaborative. A unique component of this program is that the city will be going through the process in tandem with a to-be-determined community-based organization. As we've talked about with this committee, figuring out how to electrify existing homes will be crucial to meeting our greenhouse gas emission reduction targets and central in our climate action plan update. So this program provides the city with more resources to explore policy options in an equitable way, with the end goal of this program being to create an existing residential building electrification roadmap that focuses on the needs of the Hayward community. So next steps, on October 12th, staff will present the regional housing needs assessment for the housing element update and draft outreach plan for the overall general plan update process during a joint working session of the Planning Commission and City Council. The RENA will help inform growth projections, which will be factored into the GHG forecast, emissions forecasting. Staff will continue to work with the consultant team and develop an outreach plan and update the CAP. And we will provide regular updates to the CSC throughout the course of the project, which is aimed to be completed by December 2022. Are there any questions?
Council members Arminio, did you have any questions?
Yes, I have 2 questions and 2 comments. Nicole, thank you very much. Rincon is receiving 720,000 for their consultation, or is that just money that's available for the program? Well, how much are we paying Rincon?
I believe it's 720,000. Some of that might be the retainer portion.
That includes a contingency. So
Okay.
hoping it'll be a bit less than that. Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right.
And it's a multi-year contract, and it's supposed to cover the whole thing, right?
Yeah, and that's
Right.
exactly. So it's for the climate action plan, the housing element update, the safety element update, and the environmental justice element creation.
All right. That's why it was so high.
And the CEQA.
Yeah,
And
it's
the
kind of surprising.
majority is coming from grant funds.
Yeah, and that was the other note that I noticed. Also, good on the electrifying of the community. I think that's excellent. I like the plan that it's outlined on pages 2 and 4, 2 of 4. Those are excellent. Thank you for shopping Alameda County first, because the company is based in Alameda County, so that's excellent. And then the other one is, my other question, I wasn't sure how the company or the consultant would deal with racial equity when it comes to climate action plan. Is that something you can maybe, is it possible to expand a little bit? I mean, it seems like a difficult thing to do. I'm glad that we're trying to do it, but how would it be done?
We're still figuring out the exact specifics, and that will be part of what's going to be presented to council on October 12th, is that draft outreach plan that includes the ideas that we will have on how to make sure that is equitable. Different ideas include giving different CBOs funding to then spread the word in hard to reach communities, so they're talking peer to peer, as well as setting guardrails. So when we've created a policy, we will have set guardrails that make sure that the program is doing, or policy is doing, what we want it to do, not what we think it will do. So those are some of the starting ideas, but we'll have that more fleshed out by October 12th.
All right, so my guess is there would be some notion of the working with the Jackson Triangle would be one, or perhaps south of Tennyson Road. Is that probably what we're thinking about then, right?
Yeah, and if you have any of those suggestions or contacts or any organizations that you want us to specifically reach out to, please share that with us.
All right. Maybe you can ask them if they have any thoughts on the homeless issue, see if that's something that can be touched upon by this particular element. Because when I think of climate action plan, I think of fires. And many of the fires that happen in the city of Hayward are caused by homeless, unhoused individuals out in some place. I'm thinking, I've seen quite a few fires behind the plunge. So that's something that affects climate action plan, but I don't know if it's something that they can deal with or not. So, okay, thank you.
Fires certainly don't help the emissions, do they?
Right. No, Mayor, just one. There have been about maybe 6 fires along Tennyson Road. That's 880 Tennyson Road. That have been caused by folks setting up a fire in order to be warm, and that can deal, wrongly with the climate. Okay, apologies, Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like I was going to say that I hadn't really appreciated, but it is, this consultant is going to actually, we're using some LEAP funding, correct? And it's part of the whole, we also have to update our housing element for the state. I don't see, it's difficult. I mean, there are some ways that these two things intersect, our greenhouse gas emission goals and our housing element. Certainly our housing element has more to do with trying to alleviate the problem of unhoused people by, trying to build more housing, which the state is definitely encouraging us strongly to do. And I mean, I'm trying, and of course, and we have revised building codes so that we're now pretty much calling for all electric. Is that actually officially part of our requirement now, that new construction be all, or new residential construction be all electric? But I'm intrigued too by the equity element of this and how we really do that in this subject of, greenhouse gas emission reductions. I know that we recently took advantage of some of these programs, and it was a great experience. We got actually a check for $2,800 from Bayren for doing work that, probably cost us in the area of $25,000 to $30,000. Now, not everybody can do that, but it does make, it does help out if you can do it. And I will say that since we have done all that, our electric bills are like, we had a serious discussion at the last meeting about people's electric bills and, going on the, renewable 100 with East Bay Community Energy. I mean, if we could somehow find ways for lower income people who do perhaps own their homes, to take advantage of, of what's out there to remodel, if we could find a way to help them financially. There is support from Bayren, and I would think that if we were, providing funds to help pay, that we would also, reap back. But it doesn't pay for all of it. It's how you get people to spend that money, to improve their house in the long run. But that's an area that I would like to see us give some consideration in terms of equity, because we even talked a little bit about, was there a possibility of trying to subsidize, put everybody on renewable 100 and somehow subsidize the people that are on the lower cost, higher emission plan. But I think those are things that we, should, it's just hard to see how they connect really well. However, it occurred to me that does hard to reach communities include young people? And because I think that's a group of people that we don't see interacting as much, maybe. And yet this is a group of people who has the most at stake in terms of whether we actually combat climate change. And they are also people who can make differences now in how they live their lives and, get on a path that, that promotes sustainability. And they have a good reason to do that. And so I was just wondering if the equity element would include trying to reach younger people. And then I also wondered about whether food is going to be considered. And I know we talked about, having food available, especially having fresh food available in all of our neighborhoods. And actually, I think we do a better job of that than most people give us credit for. People seem to think that there are only 2 brands of grocery store in the world, and that's Safeway and Lucky. And, we have a lot more, grocery, fresh food outlets throughout our city, but nevertheless, that's an element. And just the education of how the food choices that you make do affect greenhouse gases. I don't know whether that in any way impacts what we count as our own greenhouse gas emissions in the city. Does food enter into that in any way? I'm seeing Eric.
We don't currently track food emissions in our greenhouse gas inventory. There's not one easy way to do that currently, because it's hard to keep track of what everyone in the city is buying for their food and eating, right, and what they're not eating.
Right.
But there is efforts going in to figure out how to do that in a more standardized way. But Hayward's inventory does not currently have that included.
I think just trying to provide better education and especially to young people who are, forming their households and dietary, routines, and that, if you eat less meat, you're going to help the environment. You're going to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I mean, that is just a given. And I'm not touting the, vegetarian or veganism, and I'm not either of those things myself, but the awareness that if you reduce your meat consumption, it's not only can it be healthier, maybe not always, depending on what you substitute for it, but it also it does help the earth. It does help reduce emissions by lowering the demand for meat products, which as we all know, in a lot of different ways can impact our environment, and so just things like that. Transportation is the other thing, and I see that we're involved in things through the Alameda County Transportation Commission, like the Safe Routes to School, are encouraging active transportation, bicycling, and and riding a public, education about how to ride public transportation too, and free bus passes, and all those things add up too. If we get a younger population, being aware of, less use of the automobile, unless it's electric, but even at that, being more compact and dense in our buildings and neighborhoods, and using more public transportation and active transportation to get around are good things for the environment. So those are things I would like to see being considered, I think, at least as part of this. And I would count young people as a sometimes hard to reach population. So I hope they'll include that. Any other comments, Francisco, staff?
Did we want to open up to public comments?
Yes, I think we do want to do that. Thank you for reminding me. I said things. Okay, so with that, I will, yes, open up public comments on this item. I see we have increased number of attendees at this point, but none of them actually have their hands up at the moment. So I think I will, unless anyone wants to raise their hand, and if you would like to make a public comment, if you're here on Zoom, you can do that. But I'm not seeing any hands going up. So I will close public comment on this. And did you need a,
No.
No.
Mayor, this is just for review and comment, and
Okay.
we appreciated your comments.
Okay, thank you. So we can move on to item number 3, which is the outreach plan for new East Bay Community Energy default electricity product. And I'm sorry that Councilmember Committee Member Marquez isn't here, because I know she was really interested in this, but I'm sure she'll catch up with you on it. But go ahead with whoever.
So I was just going by way of introduction to mention that when in July, Council approved the Renewable 100 as the default product for Hayward customers that are served by East Bay Energy. You emphasized the need for a robust outreach to our customers to make them aware of the choices that they have going forward. So Eric Pearson, our Environmental Services Manager, is here to report on our planned outreach. Eric?
Thank you, Alex. So on July 6th this year, Council voted to make Renewable 100 the new default product for Hayward customers who are served by East Bay Community Energy. Customers currently enrolled in Brilliant 100, which is the 100% carbon-free electricity product, will be switched to Renewable 100 in January 2022. Renewable 100 is the 100% wind and solar power product from, and it all comes from California. And so attached to the staff report, we provided a list of proposed outreach activities that we plan to do over the next few months. And so staff is seeking the committee's comments and suggestions for additional outreach opportunities.
Okay.
So most customers will be switched to Renewable 100 in January. The actual date will depend on the date of the customer's billing cycle. The outreach is going to focus on the reasons for going with Renewable 100, primarily greenhouse gas reductions. A very important factor that we'll be promoting is the customer's ability to choose, and that they can choose Bright Choice if they would like to pay a little bit less on their monthly bill. And then also we want to inform Hayward customers of the income and medical related discount programs to make sure that those people that are eligible for those discounts can enroll in the programs. So EBCE is helping us with drafting flyers, letters, and bill inserts. This is a screenshot of a postcard we've been working on. We're still working on the text. We're actually going to make this into a full sheet with a single fold so that we can have sections for Spanish and Mandarin in addition to English. This is, we think, going to be one of the most comprehensive outreach efforts that we've done for a program like this. We've included the full list attached to the staff report, but here's our brief summary. We did include an article in the July leaflet issue. The July issue, will also be doing another one later this month. We intend to put it in the stack as well. We may need to skip the Mariachi Festival, as the Hayward specific web page on the EBCE website probably won't be live until the end of the month. So we're not sure how we might message that in the meantime. We do intend to present at the Youth Commission in October. And then we'll have a compost giveaway the last weekend of October. We plan to do bill inserts for both garbage and water bills. We plan to make announcements at community workshops for the CAP update and general plan workshops. Make announcements at various public meetings, and then do two direct mail pieces that EBCE will take care of. So this is a list of the cities that have recently decided to change their default. Albany, Hayward, and Pleasanton each had Brilliant 100 as the default. So these cities, these customers will change in January. Berkeley, Dublin, and San Leandro decided to change just for the greenhouse gas benefits. And so anyway, these cities will have slightly different schedules. Berkeley and San Leandro will start in March of next year. And Piedmont was already on Brilliant 100, or I'm sorry, Renewable 100 since 2018. So by October of 2022, we will have 7 of the 15 cities in EBCE will be on Renewable 100 as the default. And that concludes my presentation. And just want to mention that Alex DeGiorgio from EBCE is also with us on the meeting. So in case there's any questions that he needs to answer. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Francisco?
Eric, thank you. Alex, thank you. I have no questions, just some comments and corrections. Mariachi Festival is the October the 15th.
I just saw something today that said it was canceled, but you're saying that it's just rescheduled to October 15th?
Yes, we met this last Thursday and we decided to go ahead unless something happens COVID-wise and we have a huge explosion. At the moment, it's scheduled for October the 15th, beginning at 6. And I'm thinking that I'm glad that you're going to present at the Hayward Youth Commission. That's excellent. How about possibly a presentation at the Hayward Rotary Club? We Rotarians don't know anything about EBCE, and maybe it'd be good 20-minute presentation as to what this all means. And there are quite a few business owners at the Rotary Club, and I don't think that they've ever heard of EBCE. So consider that. We meet on Mondays at 12 for an hour and a half, and your presentation would be at 1 o'clock. So consider that. Maybe also a December presentation at the Latino Business Roundtable, where we have anywhere from 10 to 30 people. At the moment, we're Zooming. So consider that. And if you decide to do that, let me know who it would be, since I'm the one who kind of handles that aspect of it. Let's see, and the plan on page 2 and 4 is 2 of 4 is very good. I like it. It's really reaching out to everybody, and that's tremendous. Thank you.
Council members, I just wanted to mention that including the Youth Commission was based on your recommendation. So we included them in the outreach, and we'll be happy to make presentations to both Rotary Club and also the Latino Business Roundtable.
Do you know Pam Russo?
Yes.
Okay, she is the one who handles the program, so maybe you can contact her about it.
Okay.
And then over for the Hayward Youth Commission, we meet on the 1st and 3rd Monday of the month. And you can contact Ivan over at the library.
Okay. We'll do that. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Very good plan out there.
Yeah, I would agree, and don't have a lot of other, I mean, just really emphasizing, the goal of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, and how it would be very difficult to achieve it if we didn't do that, stressing the other cities that are doing it. And it would be nice to, and maybe you would be doing this anyway, but including information about other ways you can reduce your bills, because really solar, and even though it does, there is a cost involved, but there is also, I think there are tax credits on solar. I don't know if the Bayren, that didn't really apply to the solar. That applied more to things like insulation that we got. And also the new heating cooling system that's entirely electric now with the heat pump. But ways people can reduce their energy bills through and improve their houses. And make them more energy efficient. And I mean, I can say that in our case, the big benefit we got was that we were able to get air conditioning where we did not have it before, included in our new heating and cooling system. So we're using less energy, and we're also now cooling our house, which, was a really, it's certainly been a big deal the last few weeks. So, so I just, just information, about things people, I do think that especially in our city in Hayward, people are concerned about climate change. I think we all have to be real concerned after this summer and the fires. And, we all know that we absolutely have to change how we've been doing things. And we have these ways of doing it. And I think just making it a positive presentation and encouraging people to look at these other ways that they can, reduce their greenhouse gas impact and also, really improve their homes. Okay, so no other, and I'll open public comment on this item. Is there anyone who would like to make a public comment? Please raise your hand. I guess we probably ought to do that at the beginning, but operate a little differently here. So I'm not seeing any hands raised. So we will now move on to item number 4, which is the countywide model ordinance to comply with Senate Bill 1383. That's regarding our recycling efforts. And so that will be Jeff, I believe. Yes, Jeff. Hi, you're there. To start us off, and we actually are right now about 9 minutes ahead of schedule, so that's good.
All right.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, let me get my there. Can you guys see the presentation?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet, huh?
In about a minute.
Well, I could start and assume it's going to appear in a moment. So I'm going to provide an update on the countywide ordinance to implement SB 1383. That's otherwise known as the Organics Reduction and Recycling Ordinance, or the ORRO. And this SB 1383, the main goal of it is to reduce greenhouse gases by reducing the amount of organics that go to landfill. And this is probably the most significant recycling law that's been passed in California in the last 30 years. It's got a lot of requirements. And one of those requirements is that jurisdictions need to enact a local ordinance to enforce SB 1383. And so the county developed.
Are you trying to get your presentation up?
Oh, is it not up yet? All right.
No, we're not seeing
Oh,
it.
I'm sorry, guys. Let me see here.
Okay, sorry.
Eric, have you left the presentation? Did you disconnect? Yeah.
I closed mine. Mine did take there was a bit of delay before mine showed up. But
Okay.
There.
All
there we
right.
go.
Good.
Did it go now?
It's coming up.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of clunky here.
Okay, but we got it now. So
There, that looks more normal on my end. Okay. So the county made a model ordinance to help the jurisdictions create the local ordinance to implement SB 1383. And they used a template that CalRecycle offered to ensure that we meet all CalRecycle's requirements. And another advantage of the countywide ordinance is it creates consistent rules across jurisdictional boundaries throughout the county. And so we brought this to the Sustainability Committee back in May of 2021. And here's the timeline that the Waste Management Authority has followed to create the countywide ordinance. You'll notice in July, it was July 28th, it was adopted by the Waste Management Authority. And in order to be effective, jurisdictions need to opt in to the ordinance. And in order to meet the January 1st deadline that CalRecycle has set, cities need to opt in by December 2nd of 2021. And we have this item on the Hayward City Council agenda for October 26th for consideration. I'll do a little more background on SB 1383. Like I mentioned, its main goal is to fight climate change. And they want to do that by reducing organics sent to landfill. And that's because when organics get sent to landfill, they create methane, which is a real powerful greenhouse gas. And the goals are to reduce organics sent to landfill by 75% by 2025. And this is based on 2014 benchmark numbers. And then there's also an element to capture edible food that had gone to waste and to capture 20% of the amount that was wasted in 2014 by 2025. And then I have the date again, January 1st, 2022, jurisdictions need to have an ordinance in place to enforce SB 1383. And here's some of the many requirements. All businesses and residents need to sort organics and sign up for organic services. Jurisdictions need to procure organics based materials, mainly compost and mulch, but also recycled paper. There's going to be required standardized cart colors, which we're aware of. The black or gray for trash, blue for recycling, and green for organics. Edible food recovery, I've mentioned. Local enforcement, either the county health department, or jurisdictions to enforce various elements of the ordinance. A lot of reporting requirements, need to conduct monitoring for contamination, and also conduct a lot of education and outreach. The local ordinance, like I mentioned, it complies with the CalRecycle regulations. It provides consistent rules throughout the county, and it's going to replace the mandatory recycling ordinance, which has been in place since 2012. And it kind of mirrors the mandatory recycling ordinance in that there's inspections that will occur for contamination. There could be fines for non-compliance, and there's waivers for certain businesses. And then I just sort of mentioned the enforcement flexibility. The local ordinance leaves it open for us to determine who will enforce certain aspects of the SB 1383. And then there's a phased compliance element as well. And as I mentioned, you need to opt in, jurisdictions need to opt in the ordinance in order for it to be effective. And if Hayward decided not to opt in, then we'd have to draft, enact, and enforce our own ordinance to comply with CalRecycle regulations. So staff's recommendation to the committee is that the committee recommend that council adopt an opt-in ordinance to enact the ORRO in Hayward. And the next step would be, upon direction from the committee, staff would take the countywide SB 1383 ordinance to council or start drafting our own ordinance. And with that, I'd open it up for questions. And we do have, I believe, Rachel Balsley from Stop Waste on one of the phone lines to answer questions if needed.
Okay, first, did you have any questions, Francisco? Because I'm going to open public comment before we go back to comments. So did you have any questions?
I just have one question. Are we still dealing with a brand new color in garbage bins? That would mean getting rid of all the gray garbage bins that we have, creating another mountain of unrecycled plastic?
Yes, the deadline for that is like 2036, I think. So we've got some time, but that is still part of this law that we need to change the color of the garbage bins and the recycling bins in Hayward.
It's quite ridiculous, actually. So somebody's going to make a lot of money making those things. I brought up the same point at stopwaste.org, and at the meeting this last week, one of the agenda items was dealing with something else, and Stop Waste is going to work on modifying part of 1383. Some of these requirements are really tough on cities, and everybody around the table agreed that they're just somewhat difficult. So there needs to be some modification, and this is one that we really have to push. That really is my only question. A very good report. I like what we're doing, and I fully support it.
I just, on that point about the colors of the containers, my understanding from what's in the ordinance is that they made it a 2036 deadline to complete that, and that this would be on a case by case as the current containers reach the end of their life cycles, although some of them could probably live forever. They're plastic really after all, but the idea that would be that they would be replaced gradually over time. But I do think the point of what's going to happen to them is also, has some significance, and the drafters of the ordinance should weigh in on that. And let us know. But my understanding is it wouldn't happen. It probably is going to be an element of our discussions with Waste Management over our contract, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And then, I was also a food recovery organization. I would identify Alameda County Community Food Bank as a food recovery organization, and the one that we primarily have been working with for a long time to help redistribute unused edible food, here in the city to places that can use it. So
they're taking a major role in coordinating the reporting effort for Alameda County.
Okay, great. And then what the plan for enforcement, is this going to be left to the county, or?
There's certain parts of it that the county or the county health department will do. For instance, the edible food recovery, they're visiting food establishments anyway, but then there's other elements that'll fall on Hayward to do.
Okay. All right. Let me open public comment on this. Is there anybody who would like to comment on this item of the attendees? Let's raise your hand if you would like to. I'm not seeing any hands going up. So I'll go ahead and close public comment. And did you have any other comments, Francisco?
No, I'll just move on the item.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And this is one you did want us actually to recommend adoption of the opt-in model ordinance to the full council. So that's your motion. I'll second that motion. I agree. This is, this is something that we have to do, but it's a good thing to be doing too. And, we ought to take it to heart and, really do what we can to improve in our, continuing to improve in removing things from the landfill and getting them to other places where they can be more useful and or not, not as much of a problem as the piling up of things in the landfill. Honestly, this ordinance goes, goes to a certain extent to force us to do good practices, but I think a big, the big thing is getting, the first element of the 4 R's, reduce, and getting more corporate responsibility, product responsibility for containers and packaging that have a lot of waste in them. And that's got to be done at the state level, but this may help somewhat. So with that, I guess the record can reflect that both the motioner and, unless you have any objection, motioner and seconder have, due support, and that's 2 votes in support and 1 person absent for the purpose of moving this to council. And that was that October 12th. Is that when?
26th, I think.
26th. Okay. Okay.
I love the name Oro.
Yeah.
Love it.
Golden.
Yeah, gold.
Gold is something that you don't have to worry a lot about recycling, though, isn't it? Or, not being used. But okay. So that brings us to item number 5, which is our proposed 2021 agenda planning calendar.
Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead if you.
The mic button always moves when you start sharing your screen. So we have, let's move on to the next slide. We have 5 items currently scheduled for the November meeting. So we'll see if we can keep all these on the agenda and get these reports prepared. We've got use of cameras to enforce illegal dumping. This is requested at our last meeting. Also requested the last meeting was an update on the goal for tree planting that's identified in the strategic roadmap. And then we have the energy resilient public facility program. This was originally called the Solar Plus Storage project that EBCE is helping us out with. We've completed the engineering assessments and we're currently waiting to determine the kind of the final details of each project for that and several city facilities. And we'll have the East Bay Plain Sub-Basin Groundwater Plan, and then a redesign of the Hayward Water Bill for the committee to weigh in on.
Eric, Hayward Water Bill redesign is not in the staff report. Was that added later?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I should have mentioned that. Yeah, we added it at the, just added it right after the agenda was published. So.
Okay.
Okay.
It's the full agenda for the November 8th.
I really like you guys because item 1 and 2 are very, very special and close to my heart, especially item number 2. So I appreciate you all.
When you speak, when the committee speaks, we listen.
Perhaps the strongest advocate for trees, for our tree community that we've ever had. That's Council Member Zermeño.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
And that reminds me, Alex, did we find out why Caltrans killed 12 pine trees at 892 and Hesperian?
We will look into it and get an answer for you. We are looking into it.
Yeah, I don't know if we planted them or they planted it, but I was cleaning the area and there they were, the poor things crying, help me, help me. And it's kind of, it was sad.
Yeah.
Especially when the state of California has the tallest tree in the world.
Exactly.
We should not be accepting that. Okay, thank you.
Yes, well, we all need water, including the trees, and it's kind of scarce right now, but I think the calendar looks fine. All meaty subjects here that we should be looking at. I do think the EV charging requirement should get some, attention and priority here because we really need, we're continuing to get housing projects before us and we need to be keeping up with the times because hopefully more and more people are going to be getting all electric cars and needing to be charging them.
You're right, Mayor, and there have been some movements recently too, so we'll take a look at that and bring it up and schedule it for one of your upcoming meetings.
Okay, but great job so far. And I mean, all these things are important. I'm looking at the, things that I don't maybe even necessarily understand, like low carbon concrete, but things I do understand, like the need for reusable dishware and regulation of single use, foodware. So anyway, good things on the list. We'll try to fit them in. Are there any public comments on this item? We're down to 2 attendees now. Seeing no one raising their hands, we can now move on to committee member and staff announcements. Referrals. Anyone have anything for the good of the order?
I have none. thank you all for a good presentation today.
Okay, and
Mayor, I don't have any comments, but I just noticed that in our staff report for the proposed items, roadmap to meet 2030 GHG target has been crossed out. We just presented that item, so we are going to correct that in the minutes.
right, I thought that was just because we're doing it today, but
No, these are that means items that we had initially intended to present, but did not have time to do.
Oh, yes, I
So,
see that.
yeah.
And you're right. That shouldn't be crossed out because we did it today.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
Okay.
we'll make that change.
All right. Yes, please. And with that, if no one else has anything, it looks like we are now adjourning 21 minutes ahead of schedule. Good job.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Well, we had one less person talking about things, one less committee member, but yeah, good job, everybody. All right. Well, thanks for all the good work, and we'll look forward to certainly seeing a couple of these things, but especially the 1383 matter back at council soon. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your work. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I adjourn, I did have one announcement that I shared with a couple of people I was on a call with earlier today. But we had a meeting last week of the Funabashi Hayward Sister City Committee, Funabashi, Japan. And after the formal meeting of the sister city, where both I presented and the mayor of Funabashi, Mayor Matsudo, presented. After that was over, we had a little more private meeting with the mayor and a member of his staff and a couple members of the committee and myself and Zach Ibadi from our staff, since he's been the one organizing the sister city stuff. But that we were having a discussion of, how what we're really focusing on our different cities. And I certainly talked about, the environment being a big area of focus for us. And also some of the things that I saw when I was in Japan that really impressed me. One is their railroad system, which I realize we don't build railroad systems as the city of Hayward, but that certainly they have built a very good one. It's electric, it's, fast, it's convenient. They have probably higher density communities than we do to, use that. But the other thing I remember noticing, and everybody comments on, is how clean their cities are, how you do not see graffiti all over the place. And what's really remarkable is that's the case, even though you also can't see any evidence of, very, very few trash cans. We kept saying, are there trash cans around? And so what happens, and I think people pack it home for one thing, but also they very much reuse things in Japan. And you can see that in, in art and in things that they have around and available that seem to be reused other materials. And so anyway, it occurred to me that might be a really good thing for our sister cities to have our staffs. The mayor of Funabashi was very interested in some of that, and we just thought that it would be a good idea perhaps to at some point get our staffs together to have some discussion about how we handle certain environmental things and whether we have anything to learn from each other about good practices in that area. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that along too, and say that at the committee that we'll be looking at a way to do that sometime in the future. I think the Sister City program was meant as a way for the ordinary people of countries, and they specifically. That's why it was specifically chosen as a city type thing, because we are we're the level of government closest to the people of the country, and that it's to promote world peace and cooperation through the people of different countries. And if there's anything that we need to cooperate with all of the other countries in the world on right now, it is sustainability. And anyway, just wanted to put that out there, as hopefully we can make that happen sometime, and some of you can be involved in that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Mayor.
with that, we can now adjourn less than 21 minutes ahead of schedule, but still ahead of schedule. So I'll see you all at the next meeting in November, correct?
Yes.
All right,
Thank you.
so until November 8th, we're adjourned.
Have a good green week.